Hey, Natsu here. Today I'm going to do part 3 of my What If Deku had a leveling system. In the last part, I think I ended it with him being level 500 and 160 years of age. So, he left the village where he was because basically a kingdom attacked them. He basically destroyed the entire kingdom as well as, well, everyone in the royal family. He made sure that no innocent were there when it happened. But every guard, every royal family member, everything was basically destroyed by him because of what they did. And not just in that life, basically because they were always looking for trouble, basically. And if there wasn't any, they were making it themselves, so he just decided to finish it with them, since he had enough. So after destroying them, he basically left to go and make a new life once again. Sorry about that. And where he decided to go was basically for the first time he went overseas and he found an island. On that island was basically a small. Well, the island was still pretty big, like at least a diameter of about 100 kilometers, and there were multiple island and other, not island but towns and village on it. So he basically went there by flying most of the way. Arriving there, he basically just went and started looking at, well, some of the towns. In one of them, he saw that, well, in a small shop, basically a forge to be more precise, they were basically looking for work. So he went and asked what he would need to do to work there, and they just told him that the skills he would need are basically just that he is strong, has a lot of precision, and that he's able to stay for long periods of time, just kind of in the shop working to make weapons that are basically commended. So he decides to try it and show them what he can do, and he starts by basically doing, well, they ask him to do a sword. Basically he starts by taking an ingot to do basically the sword. He starts hitting it and hitting it a bit. At first, the well, the boss of the place is thinking he's going to mess up already. But Izuku basically started it, and in his skills it added Forger, and he basically boosted it to 10 and basically just kind of fixed his mistake automatically, which the Forger in chief basically just thought, oh, or it was just a mistake or a the way that he starts everything, because he saw that he corrected everything himself without anyone telling him. So basically Izuku did the sword correctly, but it was a low fashion sword that didn't have a lot of complexity to it. And the forger said, so you're capable of doing starter stuff? Well, we can engage you and we'll teach you more stuff during that time. So where do you live? Which he basically says that he just arrived on the island, and so he doesn't really have any place to live. The forger basically tell him, well, if you're able to do it, you can basically just go anywhere and build yourself a house as long as it's not on the terrain of anyone. Then he tells him exactly a certain place, and that if he has wood and stuff like that, he can basically build it there. So Izuku asks if they have, um, well, no. He basically just goes there actually, and he uses his, well, one of his plant magic to basically make trees grow. He then cuts them using Iron Dragon Slayer to make a sword. Then he starts making, well, basically he starts making his house actually. So when he's done, he basically goes back and tells him about the house that he's done building, and then he is told, good, well, now we can start actually, you can start actually working with for us, which Deku does. And so, well, he starts working, everything seems pretty good. For the next 2 years, he basically works in the forge and basically learned practically everything. So, while in the forge, after a bit, what happens is a specific, well, someone specifically asks for a certain amount of things that basically normally they can do, but not in the quantity they want in the time they have, which Izuku basically thinks anyone would know that it's practically impossible to do something like that. No, not even practically. It is impossible to do it in that time. If you're not. And then he just think they're competition. They don't want him to do it, and then they're going to say that he didn't do what he needed to do, which he doesn't want. The forger basically knows that, okay, they're trying to make us lose, and he basically says that they won't be able to, with Deku basically looking at them and saying, on my dead body, which they ask what he means, and then basically starts working, and they say you won't be able to. It's too much. You won't even. It cannot be done in that short amount of time. Which Izuku says, huh, just watch me. And basically he starts hitting a lot stronger, but more precisely. Normally a lot of swords would break from that, but the metal they are using is actually something that the harder you hit, the stronger it gets later, because it doesn't lose mass, it just gets compressed. It is a magical metal, and that's the reason it does that. So don't try to find a real metal in the real world, it won't happen. And basically, he just starts hitting strong enough to basically make it like some of the strongest sword they ever seen. And he basically makes one in like 4 times less than what they normally do, because he gives 4 times the amount of strength in a single strike, as well as giving them the perfect form they need. So everyone basically starts working, and he says he's going to take a big part of the workload, and to just make sure that every other sword is perfectly made, to make sure that they have it, which basically they start doing. And by the end of it, basically like a day before the last day they can send it out as, Izuku basically, well, they finish thanks to Izuku, which every one of them is basically really happy because they never seen someone do it like that. Which they basically, well, the chief basically asked him what his strength and dexterity is, with Izuku saying that all he knows about them is that they're really strong, and that, well, he has multiple special skills that are unique to him, so it is kind of easy to do certain stuff. So basically, after they send it, someone comes to the shop, basically the one who sent the request, and basically asks, "So, did you finish with my swords yet? You only have 1 day left, or or do you not have enough time?" Which the chief basically says, "Oh, well, actually the command is done. We finished this morning. Do you want it right now, or do you want us to send it to the address you wanted us to send it to?" Which the guy is like, "Wait, what? You finished already? That's impossible." And Deku basically says, "Well, what's not possible is actually the way that you wanted us to do it anyway. If I wasn't there, they would have..." No, he doesn't say that. But he thinks if I wouldn't have been there, they would have been in trouble. But the boss basically says that they were lucky to have a good batch of metal to do it. Which the guy was mad at because, well, he was trying to actually make them lose the place. Which didn't happen thanks to Deku. So, when it was all done, and that the guy left, sorry about that. What they basically did was congratulate Deku because of what he did, which was, well, one of the most amazing things they ever saw. Since normally they still need sleep, but he literally stayed up all of the time, like he didn't sleep at all and was literally just working without eating anything and using his fire magic to basically heat up the blades instead of always having to pump the forge, since in the old times what they had was basically that they were sending air manually in it with a special object that basically just, how can I explain it? It literally has a bucket where there's air in it and basically something that acts as a bag with a nozzle on one side for it to get out of. And basically what you do is press on, well, close a part and it sends a lot of air through it. That's basically what they use normally. He basically just heat up the forge with his magic to make it way easier for everyone. So he also saves them time with that, which they were really happy about, because if not, it would have been even worse. So in the end, he was, well, um, the reason why all of that happened perfectly. So basically, the entire town heard about him basically saving, um, well, the commerce, well, the forge. Since everyone know the guy who sent the message, they all saw him leave angry, and it's because the guy wants to buy the entire town. Because the guy is rich, but they don't want to sell because of all of the different shops and everything else in the town that everyone basically works at. So he started trying to send bad deadline to everyone with stuff that they shouldn't be able to do. At first it wasn't that bad, but he's starting to send worse and worse, which Deku basically hears and thinks, so he's actually just trying to make them lose all of the commerce they of the shops they have, just because he wants to buy the town and they don't want to sell. Well then, let's make sure none of his deadlines are missed. So the next time he sends one, he basically puts one for a small shop that sells grains and stuff like that. Basically, he wants more than what they can, well, more than what they have themselves, in like half the amount of time that it takes to actually grow it. So impossible. And Izuku basically just arrived, and in one day he basically used his plant magic to grow it, like, completely. So basically making you like 2 or 3 times what the guy asked for, so that they still have a lot in backup. Then they wait for up until just before the last day and send it. Every other day when he was showing up, they were basically saying that they were working on it, him leaving, having a big smile, and then on the previous last day, them saying, oh, we were able to finish in time. Do you want to take it? And since Deku doesn't stay in the shop when they don't need him, he basically doesn't see him. But basically Izuku works at every different place at once, trying to make sure that they can that they increase the amount of work they're able to do, simplify it, and help them go faster with making better quality of everything. So the guy starts sending more and more. Like, at this point, it's been about 3 years since Deku arrived there. And the guy's just kind of trying to make them lose more until basically the king of the island, basically, since it is called, well, a kingdom in itself, that is the entire island, basically gets told that a certain guy is trying to make, eh, well, to make every business in a certain town basically give him a lot of stuff, and that they're able to do everything that he asks. But the king basically asks, why does he always go for that town? There's a lot of other towns around. Which they say that they don't really know why. Then he decides to go investigate on his own, sending spies and stuff. And one of them basically asking, what's the deal with the guy? Which Izuku basically just says, well, he's trying to buy the entire town, but since nobody wants to sell, he's trying to force everyone to lose their commerce and money by giving them impossible deadline. So it is reported to the king. The king basically decides that, okay, yeah, the guy has to be stopped. So the next time that the guy tries to stop at one of the shops set an impossible deadline, the king basically finds him and just enters the store in the middle of the talk. The guy basically tells, without looking at the king, don't you see I'm trying to put a request here? What do you want? And then he turns around, sees the king, and he gets scared. And then the king asks him, because he heard what the guy asked for, which no one should be able to do, even with good magic, which Deku actually created multiple spells for people to be able to use if they had the element for it, which let's say at least one person in the town had the element for it, so it should be okay. And the king basically told the guy, you're setting deadlines that are basically made to make them lose. The reason you have the position and power you have is because I gave it to you. You helped our kingdom a long time ago, but now you became cocky. And basically says to him that since he never had to pay taxes for his land, that the king is going to basically take the taxes that he should be paying, or that he's going to take his land, one or the other he chooses. And the guy didn't want to pay the taxes that he would have been required to pay in total, because that's more than the entire sum of money he owns. So he loses his title, the place where he lives, and lose about half his money trying to find a new place. So he doesn't do what he was doing anymore, because basically he wanted to buy the town to basically destroy it, just so that he could basically make a shop that's basically not one shop but multiple shops that would basically be all his, with using the people of the town to work in it without paying them enough money. So Deku basically destroyed the entire plan, and the guy basically just left. Like, he left the entire island because everyone, every town, everything basically saw him as a fucking asshole. So, Izuku was given the title, well, was presented with the title that the guy had because they still needed someone in that position, which he refused, saying that he would prefer working in a small town calmly than to have to be in royalty or have more things to do than what he already has to do, which the king accepted. So then for the next couple of years, basically at this point Izuku's was about 170. So in total 10 years since his family got killed. In this town, he didn't try to be with anyone. Basically, he had friends, but he didn't want a family this time. He just kept working normally, in fact, making money. Sometimes the king asked him for help on different things. At some point, there was a war where he was asked if he could or make weapons or fight with them. Which the war was basically just well, I call it a war, but it was more like multiple monsters from deep under the sea started rising and going up on, well, the island and trying to attack everyone. But like there was a lot of them, so they basically asked Deku for help because at some point he kind of would have been affected. So he did help them without showing his full strength, but still destroying a lot of them. So at some point everything ended. This is basically one of the calmer life he would have for now. Because yeah. I basically already have about 2,000 years for him of made. Around 10 more videos. But I'm doing more for now. Every part is basically one life. So, yeah. So, like I was saying, he fought in a war with them. They won. He got awarded a good sum of money since he was one of the people who helped the most. Um, when he wasn't in the battlefield, he was basically making weapons or healing people. Since healing is one of the well, natural magic that everyone can have if they have enough mana for it. So it was basically not weird for a magician to basically have that. So he basically decided to say that for his small size, he was a half elf, a half dwarf, to explain his strength and prowess in magic, as well as the reason he doesn't seem to age at all. So, yeah. Later, basically like 20 years after that, so 190 years, basically the town where he was grew a lot. Um, well, every town grew a lot, but his grew a lot more because of the way that he he kind of started making experiments, making new things, and since he was in a forge most of the time, he was able to kind of test them. So at this point, he's basically the manager since the old guy took his, well, basically stopped working at some point. Deku was the one to take the, well, his place. Everyone loved working for him because it was you can work, train, or you can test the weapons and other things I make. So it was or you're working or you're training, which afterward makes your job kind of easier. Or you train, or you test the weapons that he makes, which most of them are basically like he's trying to enchant objects, which he does a lot and pretty good as well. So he is renowned in that kingdom as the enchanter because he makes, well, normally basically what happens is that you have a forger that makes the weapons and an enchanter that enchants them, while he basically do both of those things. So he saves a lot of time, money, and a lot of other things, as well as thanks to his um well healing powers. A lot of times what he does is if people are exhausted or start to be sick in town, he's there to help. Um he doesn't really how do you say again? He doesn't really seems like someone that you wouldn't trust, even for people that just arrive in town. Basically, he looks like a kid anyway, so not a lot of people would actually think of him as bad. So, fully, the king basically helped him get more mines where the metals can be collected, more um, space, and he sent in some of his forger to basically learn under deku. So 190 years, and that's basically all that he has already for this place. He's been there like 30 years. He doesn't have a family, he does have friends, but that's pretty much it. Um, so for this one, the reason he leaves the place is that at some point he basically said to one of the workers that he wants to go explore a bit. that there he to basically it's the guy that he taught to everything he knew. He basically says that everything he is able to do, the guy is able to do like three in 3 times what Izuku does, but is still able to do it. So it's good. And that he wants to go explore now. So everyone is sad to see Will, the savior of the place, leave, but they are still happy that basically the guy has more dreams and that he's going to go and do them. The king basically before Izuku leaves literally made a banquet and multiple gifts as well. Basically, in his storage right now, he has every weapon, well, perfect weapon that he created with enchantments. Basically, a hammer that helps him control the earth. A spear that can throw lightning. He has his 2 old swords that are fire and ice, respectively. And he has a weapon that he basically almost broke making it. Well, it took like 100 tries to be able to make it perfectly. What I mean by that is that he didn't place just one element on the weapon. He placed about 3 or 4 different powers. The first one is a metal quirk that lets it change shape. So it can be 2 different forms. A long sword, or it can be a spear. It can be one of those 2 always. Second enchantment is an enchantment that basically augments the power of the weapon. So making it so tough that it's basically almost unbreakable. He placed for the third one here it is. Sorry. The third enchantment is an enchantment to basically burn, but like instead of creating fire around the sword or making the sword fire, it just augments the temperature of the flame by a lot on the weapon. And the fourth and last one is a weight manipulation, so he can increase or decrease the weight of the weapon. And this is basically the weapon he always have on him, that isn't in his storage. And yeah, so after all of the things that the king did say goodbye, he basically left. And the kingdom is basically in the best shape it's ever been. So, yeah. Deku at this point is 190 something and like 91 years old. His level over the 30 years augmented from 500 to 560. In this one, all he did was basically learn how to, well, how to be a merchant, a forger, or the last one was, where was it? Okay, and the last one is a where the hell did I place that? Oh, okay, here it is. The last one is basically a miner. Like, he had a mine himself. He had a mine where he had people going there, but he also did that multiple times himself going there. So he basically has all of that. He didn't gain new spells. He did gain, well, the skill to go mining, to forge, and lastly the merchant skill. So yeah, this was part 3 of What If Deku Had a Leveling System. Hope you liked it. If you have any suggestion for later lives that he could have, since I need to do about 3,000 years and I have only 2,000 years in that. So from 30 to 3,000 and 2,000, there's a long way. I'm already working for more, so I should be okay. But if you have any suggestion or stuff like that, just place them in the comment section. So yeah, hope you liked it. I really like this one since nobody ever seemed to have done them. All that people do is solo leveling. What if? When it comes to leveling, but I don't really watch that. So I placed my own twist on it. Hope you liked it. Natsu out.